Good afternoon. I've had someone ask me about reading a residual plot. So this is question 6 from chapter 4c. And the question says, which of these says that we shouldn't have really done a linear model for it? Now remember that if the residual plot has a clear pattern to it, then that means that it's a non-linear model, or it's a non-linear relationship. Looking at these three, one of them, there is a clear pattern to it. All right, there is a discernible pattern to it. So I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to work my way up, which is kind of a hint at which one is the one that you shouldn't, which is the one that shouldn't have had a linear model put to it. All right. No matter where I put my line on C, no matter where I put my line on C, there is nothing that sort of gets a nice clean line that gets me through a lot of this stuff. All right, because if I try and link the data points up, as I move left to right, if I try and link the data points up, what happens? Watch what happens to my data. Down, down, up, down, up, down, up, up. There's no pattern there. All right, and the same thing goes for plot B. Down, up, down, up. All right, it's all over the place. But if I look at plot A, and I, for example, and I just link them together, it's a nice smooth line. And that tells me that there's a pattern there. If I can link them all up and it makes a shape or it makes something nice and smooth, relatively speaking, then that tells me that there's a pattern going on there. That's telling me that the more I progress in my graph, that's telling me the further away the prediction is from the original. So this is telling me, this one up here is telling me that at the start, the residual was only about negative 1.5. But over time, my graph eventually got further and further away from my straight line, which means that my regression line decision that I made to try and use a linear line, completely wrong. Makes no sense. All right. For example, the only way that I can think of to get a residual plot like this was if I had a bunch of data that and I tried to do a residual line like that, when clearly it's a curving downwards. As I go across, my data points are getting further and further away from where the predicted line actually is. It's not a great example, but it's an example. All right, so what you should be looking for, if you're trying to see if there's a pattern in your residual plot, if you're trying to see if there's a pattern, just mentally join the dots, connect the dots. And if you can see that there's some sort of pattern forming, like this one here, it tends to increase over time. As I change in the X value, my residual plot is getting further and further away, but it eventually levels out, but there's a pattern going on here. All right, so that's the answer that I would give. the book answers are saying that C also has a pattern to it. No, it doesn't. All right, it's a mistake in the book. So if you're relying on the book, there is no pattern going on here. It's all over the place, as evidenced by my scribbly lines. Because it's up, down, up, down, up, down, up.